Trump is apologizing this morning after videos released showing the GOP presidential nominee making lewd comments about women. The video was shot more than a decade ago, but it could result in a lot of damage for the candidate in the polls, especially when it comes to women voters. Let's talk more about this with John Johnson of Edgeworth Economics and the author of the book, Everydata.
There are these moments in elections historically that we think back on that seem to be sort of become kind of the moment. Michael Dukakis in The Tank, Howard Dean, the Dean Scream, where we actually see something sort of a demarcation point in the polls. Here, there's a few things. First of all, it's been a highly unusual year with lots and lots of stories and activity. And so polls are done over time, and sometimes with the news cycle moving so much quicker than the new polls can get out, you just have to be careful. It takes several days before you actually can kind of find effects in any polls on any of these things. And since we have another debate coming up, that's one challenge. But here, I think the real key is Donald Trump has struggled in the polls, at least, with sort of the key demographic of female voters. And that's exactly where you want to look to see where the effects are there, sort of further erosion or shifting even more to Hillary Clinton on that. I think that's the place to look in the polls. What happens to support amongst females in the next week or so?
Now, we do have an apology from Donald Trump, but looking back to past elections where an apology is issued, is that enough to hold off some of the damage?
It depends. I mean, it's not, that's partly where the polls actually start to become useful because, we don't know. We don't know how the voters are going to react. And, so many times people obsess about the polls in terms of trying to predict the horse race, who's going to win. But one of the real great values in polling for us is that it tells us kind of here's where the electorate is thinking at this point in time. So in terms of assessing that question, how do people view the initial, the event, the release of this tape, and then how do people view the apology? That's something where the polls can be pretty useful to us in terms of telling us things, and we'll all stay tuned to find out.
All right, well, let's talk about the polls from last week. Obviously, these came in before this controversy, so what did we see?
Yeah, it seems like an eternity now ago. The polls generally have shown a strengthening of Hillary Clinton's lead. Two sort of notable things. First of all, she's in almost every two-way average poll, Real Clear Politics or otherwise, she is now ahead, and the leads have been, in the 4 to 5 point range. I think sort of more telling, though, as we always sort of talk about, is, the Electoral College is what decides the vote, and now suddenly we see leads in almost every battleground state. Pretty much make it easy. The one where Trump has been leading is Ohio, but otherwise Colorado, Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Clinton in the lead in all of those. So this has been a very strong week, at least in terms of the polls for Hillary Clinton, a less strong week for Donald Trump.
John Johnson, he's of Edgeworth Economics.